Motorhead, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, 11 tracks, 40 minutes for the original album. I don't know if you listened to the playlist I put together after this because there's a few bonus tracks in there to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the album. This is a live album originally released in June 1981 via Bronze Records, produced by Vic Mail and recorded across a few different locations in England. Coming off the back of a string of successful releases, this one peaked #1 in the UK while doing well across Europe and New Zealand as well. This album has been certified gold in the UK and is widely regarded as an essential album to listen to. So yeah, it's just had its 40th anniversary box set released, and we figured we'd go back to the original and give it a spin. How'd you go, Tim?
I love this album. So this one, and it's one of the best live albums ever made. Really,
I agree.
You think there's probably this. There's the original Iron Maiden one from the House Lake tour, pretty good. Live After Death.
Live. Yeah.
And probably Kiss Alive is probably the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Kiss Alive albums are better than the studio albums.
Yeah.
But I love this. I love this era of mode. I mean, what I love about this band is that they're effectively like a 50s like swing, but like swinging blues band, and they just turn it way the fuck up.
Yep.
And then for me, that's when they're at their best, and you get a lot of that in that early era of Motorhead, and there's a lot of that on this album. And what I love about this album is you hear just how good of a band they are, just like they are, just how well they play together, how much they're in sync as musicians. Because I mean, I think I saw Motorhead in probably 2011, which is the last time I came here, and at that point in time, I mean, they're 60-something years old, and don't get me wrong, they're great, but they take a couple songs to warm up.
Yeah.
As you do when you're that age, you know? Yeah. By the time they get to Ace of Spades and Killed by Death, they're on fire.
Yeah.
With this album, it's from the get-go, and they're off to the races. And the other thing that I loved was... the other thing that I love doing is you seeing how sort of the set list evolves as things go on.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is on the Ace of Spades tour. And so Ace of Spades from the album. I think, 40 years later, there's no way they're opening with Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
They're saving that, they're keeping that one in the back pocket.
That's
for later on in the night. And things like, but even little tracks that you wouldn't hear live anywhere these days, from like songs like Iron Horse, and the Hammer, Stay Clean, and all that. I mean, songs like, and the other thing is too is you see how successful Bomber and Overkill were as well, because pretty much everything's from those three, that and those tracks. I mean, there's nothing from On Parole, even tracks like like a lot of tracks like from Ace of Spades that you expect to be on there. But again, these are the sort of things that we look at 40 years later in hindsight, and we go, Love You Like a Reptile was a great track, but at the time probably was missing something. So, I love looking at these things as like a fan of history and a fan of music and a fan of bands like Motorhead and a fan of Motorhead themselves. And it is essential listening. For everyone, especially if and the drums. Let's not forget the drums.
Yep.
All drummers love Motorhead.
Yes.
And so anyway, look, I love this. It is a 10, and it's everything I love about music and playing live and being watching. It's just that feeling of togetherness and that moment where nothing else matters. And it's the sort of band that I like too, where they just slap you in the face constantly. There's no bullshit. They're just playing a million miles. They're playing a million miles an hour, and they're full of adrenaline. They're just smacking over the head constantly. I like that. It's great. My highlight track is actually Motorhead. That track.
Oh, cool.
Motorhead. Because, again, that's where I think Motorhead sound their best. Not when they're a hard rock band, but when they're that 60s swing and blues band.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Yeah, no, we're getting some nice comments there. Keep them coming. But this one, for me, is like you throw around, certain albums are essential listening. This is definitely one of those albums. In hindsight, 40 years on, this just captures the band perfectly in that era, in that time. It's the perfect snapshot. Opening up with Ace of Spades, it's huge. It takes you on a hell of a ride straight after that. And the band, like you were saying, they're on. From the moment they kicked off, they're just on. This comes from a few different shows, and this is so cohesive in that regard that it's just, that was smoking on this tour. Like they had it. The only thing that gives it away that it's not, the same show in terms of production, performance, all that sort of stuff is that there's, a few bits of, fade outs that don't quite, gel. But as it goes, but I'm being extremely picky if you wanted to look for a fault. But that's it really sonically and performance wise, there's nothing to make you think that there's anything. You'd think this is one show, but it's over like the course of like 3 or 4, I think it is. This is so good. If you've ever seen this band live, which I'm hoping a lot of us have, it's still like you listen to this one now, and yeah, I know they got a bit older and stuff, but it didn't feel.
It does capture what they sound like live.
Yeah. So even if you didn't see them in '81, but you saw them in 2011, you're not missing anything, kind of thing. Like it still sounds just as good, kind of thing, and it takes me back. It made me remember the times I've seen the band because it made me feel like I was there again, which is fucking fantastic for a trip down memory lane. If you never got to see this band live, this album is about as close as it's going to get for you. This is a great representation of the band. So, yeah, get onto it. But the thing is how well it's held up today, the production, all that sort of stuff. It's got everything you want from this. It might be a remaster or whatever, but this sounds fucking great. It's honest. And that honesty in it too, how there's no real tricks applied to this one, just shows you how on this band were. They knew the songs. They knew each other. They were a tight as fuck unit. And, like, I don't know, you could hear everything clearly. I loved how it had that crunch the band has live, like that ear bleeding crunch. They just only Motorhead have it, and they nailed capturing.
The thing is, right? Everyone talks about how loud they were, right? And they were fucking loud. Don't get me wrong, but part of the reason why they were loud is because that was part of their sound. Part of their sound was pushing the speaker.
Yeah.
And really driving the amps. And that's what made Motorhead sound like Motorhead.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was, I don't know, like I said, it took me back to seeing them live when you're walking out there going, fuck, that hurt, but it was worth it kind of a thing. Yeah. That's what the album feels like to me. I don't know, the mix is great, captures the band, the great track selection on this one as well. It's funny how many of these songs keep repeating on the greatest hits collections that you kept getting from this band over the years, but it's because they're good fucking songs. These guys knew how to write. Like you said, at their core, they weren't a heavy metal band. Lemmy always said they were rock and roll. And if you go back to the traditional rock and roll, they based a lot of their stuff in that groove and feel, and it was important to them.
Hey, so much of Lemmy's bass play is just 12-bar blues.
Yep. Nothing complicated.
12-bar blues and some just rolling train beats with some guitars over the top of it, man.
Yep. Fucking, people.
It's funny because I'm looking at it now, all right? I'm looking. In the lead up to this album, you've got Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, right? And then you obviously got the debut album before that, On Parole, which is a stunningly underrated album, On Parole.
Yep.
Like at one point in time, you read the reviews of this band starting out, and people are like, "This is the worst band of all time."
I know.
It's stunning to think that.
I know.
It's stunning to think that in hindsight, because like they are really like. As a first 5 albums, everybody talks about, the first 5 Metallica albums and the first 5 Black Sabbath albums and how legendary they all are.
Yeah.
When you got Motorhead, On Parole, Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, Iron Fist, Another Perfect Day. Like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah. They didn't really have a dud.
Yep.
Because they just kept to a good formula and it worked for them. Fuck, I don't know. This is really thought out, really well presented. And this is the classic lineup, and that chemistry was just, they knocked it out of the park on this one. I know everyone loves Ace of Spades stuff, but We Are the Road Crew is one of my all-time favorite tracks, and I love the way it was presented on this one. That energy and hearing that song live, like I've seen it live, but going back in memories, hearing it live is such a cool feeling. That song is just great because you know that everyone feels like they're a part of that song, if that makes sense. And it's a really inclusive thing. I don't know. If you've not really checked out a lot of Motorhead, this is a great place to start your journey. You really should check this one. This is like one of those essential listening albums. And the extra tracks on this one, Over the Top and Train Kept a Rollin', do add nicely. Train Kept a Rollin' kind of goes into what we're talking about, the older feel to some of their stuff. The soundcheck moments are a nice addition. They do drag on a bit, but it is a soundcheck, so it is what it is. But it was cool just how honest and real, and they just, they were not phoning in, not going dead set, hell for leather. They sort of did what they needed to do to get the sound right. So it was a good way.
It was a sound check.
Yeah, but it gives you an idea of just they knew what they were doing, and they were doing it well.
Can we hear everything? Cool.
Yep.
Because back in the day, remember too, when you're on tour, your sound check's your rehearsal. Yep. So you run through 2 or 3 songs. If everything sounded good, then you go find something to eat, and get ready for the night.
That's it. Yeah. Look, it's overstated or not. Take your pick, but I reckon it's one of the best live albums of all time. Probably my favorite live album, to be honest. This is brilliant. I would like to get a hold of the 40th anniversary stuff there too. But anyway, like you, 10 out of 10. I fucking can't fault this one. We Are the Road Crew is my favorite track on this one, but also Bomber, Ace of Spades as well, if you want to pick a few standouts. But there are no dud tracks on this. The whole thing is start to finish. So there is some awesome stuff in this one.